The hymn Thy Hand, O God, Has Guided was written in the 19th century by Edward Plumptre, a theologian and priest. The hymn gives thanks for all the ways God has guided the church through the years and reminds us of the importance of unity. One church, one faith, one Lord.
"75 years ago, millions of people in London and across the country were rejoicing on the streets, giving thanks in churches, partying and listening to King George VI and Winston Churchill on the radio as 6 years of war on the continent came to an end on Victory Europe Day. Walter Matthews, the Dean of St Paul's at the time, whose son was killed at Dunkirk in 1940, wrote in his memoirs that the last few weeks before the fighting ended had a dreamlike quality about them. He quoted Psalm 126, "When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. The Lord has done great things for us, and we rejoiced." He went on in his book to say, "On May the 8th, 1945, the day of the German surrender in Europe, we had nothing planned for the cathedral. There were no placards or notices. Everyone in the city seemed to resort to St Paul's by a kind of instinct. Throughout the day there were 10 services following one another, sung by the choir boys newly arrived back from their wartime home in Truro. Some 35,000 people came to St Paul's on VE Day to pray and to give thanks. Thanks for peace, thanks for being alive, thanks for making it through. And yet, as for Walter Matthews himself, there was also ongoing sorrow, remembering the men and women who had laid down their lives or families who'd perished in bombing and fire. King George spoke to the Empire by radio saying, "Let us remember those who will not come back, their sacrifice and endurance. We have come to the end of our tribulation, and they are not with us at the moment of our rejoicing. We salute in proud gratitude the great host of the living, the efforts of all devoted to the common purpose, armed or unarmed, men and women. You have endured to your utmost. As your king, I thank you with a full heart." And the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who knew that the war was continuing in the Far East and elsewhere, while ebullient at victory over the Nazi regime, was only too well aware of the cost and sacrifice that still lay ahead, and the long process of rebuilding the nation from the rubble of wartime. "We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing," he said, "but let us not forget for a moment the toils and efforts that lie ahead." VE Day 1945 is an intensified picture of our human lives. We wonder what our lives will become. We go through suffering and loss, and we try to make our peace with them. We long to be free from what oppresses us. There are dreamlike moments when it all seems too good to be true, and yet true it is. And there is hard work and disillusion, toil and effort. There is common purpose together with others, and there is loneliness. There is thanks, and there is anger, rejoicing and tears. All of these things we know. They're part of our present experience as the image of a world at war is being used of our fight with the tiniest scrap of a virus. But today, we remember what it was like 75 years ago, and we take heart. Psalm 126 continues, "Restore our fortunes, Lord, like rain restores streams in a desert. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Those who go out weeping, sowing seeds, shall come home with shouts of joy, carrying their harvest." The Dean's memoirs quote a friend of his on VE Day who was waylaid at Mansion House Station by a woman who asked, "Are you going to St. Paul's? I'm not religious, but it meant something to us that it was there and people praying in it. It's kept us going." The cathedral was packed. Yet even at the West End was the stillness of worship. It focused London's heart. St. Paul's belongs to the people, and they know within themselves that somehow it binds them to God. We sow in tears and reap in joy.
Now Thank We All Our God was translated in the 19th century by Catherine Winkworth from an early 17th century German hymn written by Martin Linkart, a Lutheran minister. It celebrates the countless gifts of love we receive from God, from birth to death and beyond.